Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this next webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Paul Cleary, who is, of course, the owner and chief executive of Caribtours. So welcome, Paul. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me, Lucy.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. And of course, we're talking to you in a week where we've had quite a bit of good news. We are in lockdown. We should say that. We're in lockdown too. But we've had news this week around vaccines, around sort of some progression in the testing regime. So are you feeling a little bit more positive this week, Paul?
I think we are. I think everyone in travel would agree to the same. It's a cliche about being on a roller coaster, but I think we're all frightened to feel positive because often disappointing news follows good news. But in terms of where we are, on the 31st of October, I think the lockdown 2 was announced and all the impact that would have on travel. But in the week that I'm talking to you, we've had the positive news about the 93% effectiveness of the vaccine, and so that's great news, and that we can't help but be buoyed up by that news. And there's also a lot of talk as well now about quarantine being reduced greatly and testing being testing been introduced at the end of this lockdown. So I think there's a lot of hope this week. I don't know if it's good news, but there's a lot of hope.
Okay, well, look, let's come back onto that in a minute. I think it'd be really good to just talk to you about how your company has fared through. It's been a really, really difficult period for so many industries. Obviously, travel, we feel that we've been very hard hit. Perhaps you can just take us back, Paul, back to March and sort of just talk to us about how things unfolded for you and kind of the strategies that you put in place, really, certainly in those initial stages to deal with things. It's been a big undertaking for you and your team.
Yeah, do you know, and I think every industry feels that I've got friends who are in retail, I've got friends who are in the restaurant trade. I think every industry feels incredibly hard done by. But I think the reality for travel is that just because people can't travel, it doesn't mean that our work stops. In fact, we have to work even harder before. So, yeah, I mean, what a year it's been for all of us. I mean, the middle of March, when it became apparent to all of us that this pandemic was going to engulf us, and I seem to remember it was that middle weekend of March when it kind of hit us with just the sheer number of worried travel agents we had calling us, clients calling us, that we really needed to get in front of this problem because it was beginning to engulf us. So we took some very early decisions, and I look back on the decisions we took in March, and I think we called it right, and that's maybe luck, not judgment, but we called it right in terms of we started cancelling holidays a month for the next 4 weeks before the FCO travel advice told us to do that, and we did that. We did it purely because we needed some certainty, and I think we needed to take charge of it. And I think in any crisis management, that's a good strategy. That's a good strategy. Just try and get on the front foot, try and take charge of the situation. Otherwise, our emergency phone was going to be ringing all through the night, every night. And it was just, it wasn't going to be sustainable living it like that. And then, like everybody else, we've just adapted as we have gone. And we spent the entire second 2 weeks of March, all of April, all of May, trying to keep bookings alive, or offering refund credit notes, of course, amending people's dates.
How successful were you with that, Paul? What was the customer sentiment at that point? Were they, because we didn't know then, did we, how long it was going to go on for? So were people at that point thinking, okay, I can't travel now, but I might travel towards Christmas? Were they?
Yeah, and that's it, Lucy. And it's so in terms of how we did really well. I mean, we retained 70% of all of and that's we retained 70% of our bookings either through new dates or refund credit notes, and we refunded those 30%, those people who just didn't know what they wanted, so they opted to take their money back. And of course we did that with no no hesitation
But
at all.
you say, of course, you did that with no hesitation, Paul, but not every company took that stance. So why did you think that was absolutely the right thing to do then? Because you're saying it as if it was like, well, if that's natural, if people want their money back, you
Yeah.
would, but not everybody thought that or couldn't do it. Some people couldn't.
Yeah, I think all couldn't do it, Lucy, and we could do it. I didn't want to do it. I mean, I think I'll be really clear. I would have rather hold on to the money. We make no bones about it. But we had the cash. We had reserves. We had shareholder funds built up over 40 years of managing our business. So we were in a position to do so, and I think when you cancel a booking in these circumstances in a pandemic, you can't view that as losing a booking. I think you keep goodwill, and when inevitably that person wants to travel again, and they'll go back into their travel agent, and we've already seen that, Lucy. A lot of those bookings that we did cancel have now subsequently phoned again and rebooked. So we did it not because we're saints. I think it was just the right thing to do, and I think I think that's a lesson we've learned throughout all of this. Yeah,
and it sounds like it's paid off. If some of them are, even if they didn't want the refund credit note at the time, then they took the money, but they've rebooked. I mean, you mentioned those refund credit notes, Paul. I mean, there was an issue, wasn't there, earlier in the summer? Seems a long time ago now, but you were issuing those refund credit notes, but we didn't know if they had protection for some while. It wasn't confirmed. And so how hard was that to, ask your travel agents to sort of push these notes when they weren't 100%, they couldn't 100% give that confirmation to their customers?
Yeah, and I think it wasn't that hard for us, to be honest with you, but that issue is in the back of everybody's minds at all times. And I think this whole crisis has brought financial protection and financial security to the top for all of us in terms of who we're dealing with, who we can trust with that client's money. And I mean, our average booking value is relatively high. It's about £11,000, and that's on average. And some of our bookings are much higher because we operate at the luxury end of the market. So that's an enormous amount of money to be holding on to for someone. And yeah, 80% of our bookings come through travel agents. We have very close relationships with those agents. And it has worked well so far on the refund credit notes. But the urgency for us was to get those converted to real actual bookings as quickly as possible, because people want something to look forward to. And a refund credit note is effectively just a bit of paper. It's a promise. We want people to have something to look forward to, and once they have that, once they've got a new booking, they're invested in that.
Yeah, and obviously there was an issue at one point as well, that people would take these credit notes, try to rebook the same holiday or similar, and the prices weren't quite the same. So they actually then found they couldn't get the same holiday with that credit note. So that became a bit of an issue. Is that something that you experienced at all with some of your suppliers?
We did, and it was just another unknown effect of this pandemic. It's completely reasonable, isn't it, for someone who paid that amount of money for that holiday, for that hotel, for 7 nights last March, to expect it to be broadly the same. But of course, life doesn't work like that. In the Caribbean, we sent out emails, well, we had conversations, and we sent out emails to all of our Caribbean suppliers. And honestly, it would have been about the first 2 weeks of April, asking them to hold rates for rebooking, because we know why rates do go up in hotels. We know that airfares go up, and also exchange rate differs as well. I mean, exchange rate has an impact, but we didn't want another hurdle to have to get over in terms of persuading clients to book. So by and large, in the Caribbean, they work really well with us. But that was an issue,
Yeah. But I think also in the Caribbean, there was the issue, wasn't there? Because some of the hotels in this pandemic, they weren't getting paid. And I know that was something you weren't happy about for a while, because it rubs off on everybody. Yet, you guys were doing the right thing, and some people weren't by their suppliers. And I know everybody was desperate at that time. They were losing bookings, losing money. But again, it comes back to doing the right thing, doesn't it, Paul?
It does. And I think, all of this crisis, or any crisis, but a pandemic or a crisis of this scale, really lays bare all of the weaknesses that are there, and it was extraordinary to me. Yeah, I was outspoken about it, and I don't think I won any friends in the Caribbean for it. But there was they'll forgive me eventually, Lucy. But there was several, maybe three, maybe four very large tour operators into the Caribbean who weren't, for whatever reason, paying their bills. So we had hotels who hadn't been paid for 3, 4, 5 months. And these are big volume operators and starving hotels of their cash. And I felt strongly about it because most of the operators of my size had always done the right thing, and we'd paid for those hotels where our clients have consumed their holiday. And yeah, I felt that they should call them out on it, but I think they've now resolved it finally. But there was a little bit of distrust along the chain of distribution between hotels, tour operators, which wasn't helpful. I think we had enough to deal with.
Yes, absolutely.
We had enough to deal with without falling out over issues which didn't concern Caribtours.
Okay, well, no, fair enough. You have to speak up. Now, another thing you mentioned there, Paul, was sort of financial protection. And you said, this has been an unprecedented event. We all know that, but it has kind of exposed some sort of, weaknesses again in the system with the travel industry. The way people hold cash and the way that they operate, and obviously you don't get agents don't get the commission until the person actually departs. And so, do you think that this pandemic and what's been exposed will change in the future? Or do you think it will need to change in terms of the package travel regulations and other rules?
I think it will need to change, whether or not it will or not. I think, one of my biggest fears is, Lucy, once this is all over, and it will be over, I think one of my biggest fears is that everyone goes back and that, as so often happens, just carry on as they did before. I think we've all learned an awful lot about the flow of money from customers to travel agents, from travel agents to tour operators to hotels and to airlines. And I think there has, the poor old travel agents have been left with no earnings whatsoever since March.
We've spoken to agents, Paul, who have actually gone and taken loans, personal loans, to repay their customers because they haven't been able to get the money back from the tour operator or the airline or whatever. So some of them have been in really desperate situations.
Yeah, and it's horrible, Lucy, and it is really, really desperate. And it's desperate. It's been desperate for many tour operators as well. It's desperate, and there are so many moving parts. It's hotels, transfer operators, DMCs, ground agents, airlines, low-cost airlines, and these are all individual commercial enterprises, and they all have their own policies. And I think, though, if I was an agent, I would look at, but once this is over, I would look at who caused me the most pain.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. If I was a hotel,
they're all saying they will. I mean, you say, you hope people don't go back to the way, and it is easy, isn't it? You can slip back into the rut again. But I think maybe this time it feels like people really will vote with their feet, and they will only work with the people that really support.
And that's really tough. I mean, the idea of someone having to take out to borrow money to pay back a customer because it wasn't coming back down the channel is, that is despicable, and it's unthinkable. And I mean, who would have thought we'd be having this conversation 12 months ago? So once this is over, I think there'll be a lot of lessons learned. And I think we all need to listen. No one needs to hold a grudge. Everyone just needs to remember where they were caused pain and how they can avoid that pain in the future.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned there, Paul, the complexity of the travel industry with all the different moving parts as you described it. And it is hard to get your head around if you're not in our industry. Yeah. And do you think that's part of the problem with the government? Because, it is hard to get your head around and to understand how the flow of money and the chain and et cetera and how it works. And do you think the government has taken the time to really understand our industry?
I don't think they understand. I mean, I'm a tour operator. I think I feel misunderstood all the time. They think the travel industry is airlines and airline tickets, and that they do need to understand. And I think ABTA has got a job to do there, because it's been the lack of understanding of what we do, and the impacts that these decisions have. By the way, the government is facing a pandemic. I'm not a government sympathizer, but I think the government has been facing this terrifying unknown pandemic, as all governments around the world have, and they've had to make some very ugly decisions. I just think it would have helped us all if we'd had a bit more understanding about our industry, and they don't understand it at all. And I think when this is all over, I think ABTA can help, let's see, educate them.
When you say that they don't understand it, then do you think if they had have understood it, they would have given us more support? Because, you know, they've helped the hospitality industry, they've helped, you know, grassroots sports, they've helped, I think they gave rent rebates to Tesco recently, even though Tesco's probably done better than ever during the pandemic. Yeah. So, you know, that there have been other sectors that seemingly have been helped, but we've been effectively, you know, well, it's a huge pause in our operation, you know, for the whole industry. And yet they've not really stepped in to give us any sort of sector specific support, have they?
No, I did. You know, Lucy, I think they should have understood our industry better, and I think that was possibly the job of the Transport Secretary, and because he should be not fighting our corner, but explaining what we do. So maybe he doesn't understand it. I don't know whether we ever would have got sector-specific support, but just a little bit of understanding would have helped, because I think, like a lot of people in travel, just the confusion in the messaging from the government, it really has been confusing. I mean, back in the end of June, all those travel corridors were announced. I think it was the end of June, the beginning of July. I can't remember, but off the top of my head, it was 70 travel corridors were announced. Then within a couple of weeks of those being announced, they started going back onto the banned list. I think it was Spain was the first one that hurt us all.
Spain went back on,
And we had exactly the same about 2 weeks ago. The travel corridors, Maldives and the Canary Islands were put on the safe list. Great news, the bookings came flooding in. Within about 4 days, there'd been a blanket travel ban, you know? And I think...
I think someone described it as like doing the hokey cokey, you know, they're in, then they're out. But that is hard as a business leader, somebody running a business. How hard is that then when you don't know if you're coming or going?
Do you know, Lucy, it is hard for all of us, right? It's for all of us. And I think one of the reasons it's hard, I think, you know, for those, many of us have been through different crises over the ash cloud or 9/11 or Gulf War. What has been so incredibly hard is not just the flip-flopping of information and U-turns, but also the immediacy of these. This is maybe the first global crisis. You'll know this better than anybody, Lucy. It's happening in real time on social media. My customers, my agents, my staff, they know about this at exactly the moment I know about it.
Yeah.
So furlough being extended, job support scheme, travel corridors opening up. And I think that's the world we live in. And I think that has been incredibly challenging for all of us, just to keep abreast of it. I mean, everybody I know has a near heart attack when their iPhone beeps with another BBC breaking news. You know, what's it going to be this time? You know,
and every Thursday when as you say, the Transport Secretary was announcing the corridors and the quarantine, and so I know it became a sort of a fear at 5 o'clock on a Thursday. Well, we won't be out of that, I'm sure. Immediately out of lockdown, but we will see. But let's then talk about, I mean, you mentioned there that you don't perhaps think that sector-specific support is coming, and that's quite key, because you've never been relying on that, have you? And you've just kind of knuckled down and come up with your own strategies to cope with this on the basis, you know, great if we do get some, but you've not been relying on that. That's not something you've been banking on. So how then, tell us how you have been doing, because I know you mentioned the Maldives there. You said you suddenly had loads of bookings flying in, didn't you, at that point? But again,
Yeah.
but how have you been coping in terms of keeping your business going?
So I think when this all started happening, so when we got into March, our busiest time of year is winter, and then we go into summer. We do most of our European business in summer. So we had just come off the back of a fairly strong winter season, so from October through to February. But we will have our bookings for, we had about £7 million worth of business on the books or due to come in for the summer. And all of that just dissipated, and in March and April, I think something you said earlier on is absolutely true. You don't know how long this is going to go on for. And for sure, Lucy, we were cancelling bookings in April and rebooking them for July at one stage, because July felt a long time away. But we knew that we you have to, what's the word? Plan, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So we planned on not doing any more business for the rest of the summer, which turned out to be prudent. And we had to kind of cut overheads accordingly. The furlough scheme, when it was announced, was hugely helpful to us. And we adopted the furlough scheme with a gusto.
Many companies did. It was a lifeline for many travel businesses.
And it was. And even though we weren't dying, it was a lifeline. But equally, we sell at the luxury end of the market, and we have a reputation, I hope, with our travel agents for offering a certain level of service. You can't at any point, and we made some very important decisions in March and April. We weren't going to stop being who we are. We couldn't touch that. So
you couldn't furlough everyone because you had to give this service to your agent partners.
Yeah, and it's absolutely, because if we're not offering that, then they don't need us at all, Lucy. So we probably furloughed a third of our team, and that was painful on those who took that sacrifice. But we were determined. We stayed open. We kept our office hours open. We opened on Saturdays. We offered everything that agents expected of us, maybe just working twice as hard. And that's how we survived. And then as we've kind of gone through the summer, at the end of June, which seems like a lifetime ago now, all the travel corridors were announced. And I'm telling you now, that first 2 weeks of July, our phones went nuts. It was a false dawn. It was a false dawn.
But it shows, though, that it shows the demand, doesn't it?
Lucy, and I tell you what, I was about to come on to exactly that. It was a false dawn, but the phones went bananas, and we got on so much new business. We really did. October half term started.
Paul, had you been sort of, not marketing, because I think nobody really did marketing during the first few months, but had you been still inspiring customers during that period? Like the fact that they rang you immediately, had you still been communicating them, maybe doing social media or doing stuff through travel agent partners? Had you kept in touch?
It's really interesting you asked that. Yes, we had, and most of our messaging throughout all of March, April, May was reassuring. We're here for you. We've got this. We're on top of this. We'll help you. We'll guide you through. Because we felt that more than anything else, people wanted the calm reassurance of a professional tour operator like Caribtours. When we were moving into June, we'd shelved our marketing. Ordinarily, after Easter, we do a massive campaign. We do a trade campaign. We do trade incentives. It's luxury travel magazine from Caribtours, if you're asking. But we also distribute 45,000 through the Sunday Times, and that was originally due to go out over Easter weekend, but we shelved it because of the pandemic. The Times needed me to give them a date for when we would do it. This is back in April. And I said, well, I don't know. So I said, okay, 28th of June. And I just picked out that Sunday, 28th of June. But Lucy, it was the sweet spot because it was that week that the travel corridors announced. So all of our luxury travel, but that was, again, it was luck. But,
well, we need a bit of luck, Paul, in this. I think that's fine. You can take that.
Yeah, no. Listen, I know. I think we've had luck with this. So yeah, we did do our marketing, but broadly speaking, the tone of our marketing changed from everything was about calm reassurance. We're here for you. You can rely on us. To as we've moved through, but then in the end of July, the bookings started flooding in. And the Caribbean, I think flights started to the Caribbean. I can't remember the dates, Lucy, but I think it's from middle of July, maybe the third week of July. BA and Virgin have been going back into the Caribbean, into Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, already for late summer. So we did quite a lot of business because the Caribbean has, I won't say benefited because this is a pure accident, but because so many other long-haul destinations were off scale, I think the Caribbean saw, St. Lucia and Antigua in particular, saw a mini boom for kind of October business.
So that was good. So that was fantastic. Although then we've gone into this lockdown 2 again. So I mean, we're hoping, aren't we? We don't know at this stage. We're hoping it's going to end on December the 2nd, as we've been told, but they did obviously not 100% confirm that yet. But the bookings you'd made, perhaps when the Maldives came on, and other bookings you had on the books, did you move? Have you been able to move those into December, or have you moved people perhaps into the new year, or what's happening down to?
That's the big challenge that all agents are having at the moment, and all tour operators are having it as well. I mean, honestly, I'm not exaggerating, and any agent who'll watch this will be nodding their head. There's bookings that we've touched. Ordinarily, you touch a booking, you make the booking, you send out an invoice, you collect the balance, you send some tickets, everyone's happy. There are bookings now, many bookings, Luce, where we've touched them 3, 4 or 5 times.
And by that you mean you've cancelled it, you've rebooked it, you've cancelled it, you've rebooked it.
And because people do want to go away, and I think there is so much hope here because we are selling holidays. It's a lovely, I think it's a lovely line of work to be in, but I genuinely do, and I think what we are selling is a dream, and I think we are selling the one product that all throughout the first lockdown and throughout this lockdown, people, families are talking at the dinner table. They want to get away, and they do. That isn't me being naive or optimistic. Everyone is desperate.
Well, I think all the research as well is showing that more than ever, because we've been contained and we've been stopped from seeing our loved ones and we've been stopped from exploring, and I think people are predicting that it's going to really be great when we are eventually allowed to travel again. So
it will, Lucy. Sorry, it will, and this is why we've been touching bookings 4 or 5 times, because people are resilient and they want to get away and they want to believe lockdown will be lifted on the 2nd of December, and it is difficult, and there's a lot of moving parts, as I keep saying, and so much is out. I mean, when I say so much is out of our control, almost everything is out of our control. But people are desperate to get away, and I think we are expecting a mini January. If the 2nd of December, if it all happens, and there's more good news on more vaccine progress, if there's more good news on quarantine being, if not lifted, reduced dramatically from 14 days, if there's more progress on this rapid testing, which there seems to be, I would expect that December could be an unusually busy month.
Yeah, Christmas and New Year is important for you, isn't it? I mean, people do travel with families, so bigger bookings, you do, that's quite a big business for you, so you really want that to come in. I'm sure you must have some bookings for that.
We do, and even in the last few days, so I'm talking to you now, we're in the first week of lockdown and of lockdown 2, and we've done, this week alone, I think we've done 5 bookings for Christmas this week. So that's they're 5 big bookings. That's 5 people who want to get away with their families, because they don't know what Christmas in the UK will look like either. I mean, no one's entirely clear on whether the rule of 6 will still be in place, or none of us know, right?
So why not go away? So
well, that seems to be it.
So Paul, I mean, I know you're not seeing it in huge numbers, but are you noticing any new trends? I mean, people have talked about they're expecting to be more multi-generational travel because people will want to reconnect with their family, or some are saying it might be people traveling closer to home. And I know you've got a Europe program, but a lot of your business is long haul. So are you seeing any of these trends yet, or is it a bit too early to tell?
No, we're not. I tell you what we have seen. I think multi-generational is absolutely, I mean, it's been growing anyway, but I think what everyone has had to endure for the last 9 months has taught everyone maybe how much they value being able to see their parents and grandparents, and I think that's really important. But I think for the destinations that we feature, and this is a trend, which is one of the reasons I think why we've seen quite a significant amount of demand, luxury, long-haul beach destinations they feel safer in this
Yeah.
crazy world we're living in at the moment. And again, that's just how it is.
And is that because people feel that they will be a little more isolated, or, not
Yeah.
in big crowds, not in big cities? That's the sort of
Yeah.
thinking.
I think it is that. I mean, this is just something that we've noticed, but we would probably work with, as it would happen, much smaller hotels, many more boutique hotels, many more family-run, privately owned, and people want to feel safe. They want to feel secure. They want to travel with someone that they can trust as well. But I think these smaller, more remote beach destinations have an opportunity, and we seem to be seeing in the Caribbean. Villas are also on the up as well. We've done a lot more villa bookings because, again, there is maybe a sense with people that a villa will be like transferring your family bubble that you have in the UK over to
And so
Barbados.
do you think if that does continue, that trend, do you think it would continue just for the short term, or do you think that it will go back to normal? People will be back at bigger hotels and all the rest of it when
I think it'll go back to normal, Lewis, and in a way, I hope it does. I think what we've all been talking about this year, and the travel that has taken place this year, has been wearing face masks for reasons we understand, in hotels with lower occupancies for reasons we understand, so people can maintain social distancing, with all the extra hygiene protocols for reasons we understand. We have to get back to travel as we know it, and I think vaccines and testing really help that. I think what we've been doing is making do for this last few months. But I mean, what I would hope would happen is, I mean, I hope we continue to do well. But I think people will start going back to the hotels that they love going to, whether they were small hotels or larger hotels.
And so, are you just basically keeping your program as it is? Have you made any sort of, or had any thoughts at least on sort of changing your program, the product or the destination? So I know you've been expanding. You're called Caribtours, but you do go to lots of other places as well. I mean, have you thought about having to sort of change your product mix at all?
No, what we've done for next year. So Caribtours. So Caribbean is our bread and butter, and that's where the Caribtours story began 40 years ago. But now the Caribbean is maybe half of our business, and the Indian Ocean, Middle East, and now Europe are the other half. So we're very happy with the program we've got. We've decided, for reasons you won't be surprised about, not to expand anymore next year. We don't feel 2020. Really? Yeah, I know, right? 2021 will be a year of calm consolidation. So I think we're everyone asks what are you expecting 2021 to look like? I mean, our budget is for I think 40% drop on 2019.
Yes, but we'd be happy with that, wouldn't we? After this.
Oh yeah.
After this year.
But I think the reality for us is, and we just don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, we everything is so upside down, and everything is affected by these outside influences on government announcements and vaccines and everything else. So we're just well positioned to take advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah, because until this happened, Paul, you guys were, well, I don't know if I should say flying, but you were doing really well. And as you say, you've got all these extra new destinations, agents, more agents than ever, I think, you're working with. it was going well.
Yeah, we were. I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think we were doing really well. Though the market before the pandemic, and I think this is what everyone's got to remember as well. The market before the pandemic wasn't that easy either, Lucy. It's, you know, I mean, we'll talk about Brexit, right? But there was a lot of economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
Thomas Cook, Lucy, was only, crikey, what,
Yes.
13 months ago?
Of course.
I mean, Brexit, which still isn't resolved.
Yes,
So,
we've got that round the corner, exactly.
No, but at least we've got that to look forward to.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about something else, Ruth.
You know, so yeah, the market was already quite tricky, and the UK economy wasn't massively buoyant. But I think for us, next year we'll see. It's you know, we're holding up pretty well so far because we have a lot of that displaced business that didn't travel last summer.
Yeah.
Now rebooked. So it's a somewhat of a false picture, but 2021 is looking quite good. But you know, we're well positioned to take advantage of it when the time comes.
And just talk to me then, we're coming close to time, Paul, but just talk to me a little bit about agents. You've mentioned them a few times during this interview. You said 80% of your business comes from the trade, and you're obviously very aware of what agents have been through. And let's be honest, we know that we've lost some agents already, and we could lose some more. And I know you've been really supporting your agent partners, but what would be your thoughts, your advice for agents that are going through this and working with you, but you know, making sure they get their businesses to, you know, through to a point at which we can start to grow again?
Yeah, no, thanks, Lucy. I mean, I would hesitate to give anyone advice because I've been learning, we've been learning as we go on this. But I just think, I think one thing that is absolutely true for all of us, this pandemic is absolutely dreadful, and it feels, and it has felt like it's never ending. And there has been no light at the end of the tunnel for most people all year, and they've been battered by bad news after bad news after bad news. The only advice I would give to anybody, because it's what I say to the Caribtours team every day, is this is going to pass. It is temporary. It doesn't feel like, and I don't want to come across as glib, Lucy. We've lost hundreds of thousands of pounds. I mean, this is, you know, this is no one's being glib, but it is going to pass. It is going to pass, and I can see a faint light. I can see a faint light at the end of the tunnel. So,
and you're speaking to customers who are saying, "I want to travel." So we've got to hold on to that. Lucy, there is hope, and there is going to be that pent-up demand. So I guess agents have got to keep talking to customers, keep inspiring them.
And that is it, Lucy. And I think there is so much, you know, there's absolute financial terror being faced by these agents. And you know, I think you've done a lot of really good work, by the way, on mental health with the agent community, because, you know, people are having a really, really tough time. But if we just all step back and think, we are one of the few industries that sell products that people are sitting around in lockdown saying, I cannot wait to go here or there. But they're not saying that about, I don't know, other products that they consume. Everybody is desperate to go on holiday. And what everyone's role is to stay alive until we're in a position to do that again. And I think we are getting closer to that point. None of us know when that point's going to come, but that's the lesson. That's the lesson for us out of all of this, is be patient a little while longer, but it's going to pass.
Whenever I see you, Paul, you're always so jolly and you're positive, you know, and I'm sure you've been great with your Caribtours team. But just on a personal note, I mean, how hard has it been? You know, you're not with them. You're obviously, you know, we're doing this interview, we're both at home. As a leader of a business, and you know, look at all these things you've had to deal with, what's the toll been like on you, or have you kept positive throughout?
No, it's. I don't think anyone, Lucy, you included, the team at Travel Weekly, Aspire, I don't think anyone's been tested like this ever before, and nor will be ever again. It's incredibly tough. And so we're a small team, we're a family-owned business. I bought the business last December outright. I've been here 21 years.
That was good timing, Paul.
Yeah, do you know? But even that, Lucy, I, I've I've been able to make every decision unencumbered. I've just been able to attack every decision, um, and I felt very much kind of happier in that position. In terms of the team have been brilliant, and everyone in my position will say how brilliant their team have been. But it's just incredible. You know, the people who work within Caribtours, I mean, many of them have worked with me for every day of the 21 years that I've been there. But they've been absolutely incredible. And I think they've all had tough days. I've had tough days. But you help each other. It becomes a team thing. And I think the one message we've had from the get-go at Caribtours is, what's our alternative, Lucy? We're not going to give up. We're not going to give up. There is no way, and that was never, we are not going to give up. I'd rather hoped it wouldn't last 9 months and counting, but we're not going to give up. And I think we've just dug in, and Caribtours will be no different from any of the agents who work with us or any of the other operators. We've had to say goodbye to some people that we loved, and that was hard. That was really hard on them and for the rest of us. And then everyone who's been left has been asked to work twice as hard with not much fun. You know, travel is a lifestyle business, isn't it?
We miss seeing everyone. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We're very social people in travel, and it's been hard, isn't it? 9 months of not seeing each other.
Yeah, no, and it really has. So I think that does take its toll, but we all keep each other going, and I think we're all in this. We are all in this together. It's no one's fault, and we've all got a common purpose. And you know, you celebrate the small things as well, Lucy. Every time we get a booking, this is unbelievable. Every time we get a booking, I mean, it used to be around this time of year, you know, you'd get maybe £1 million a week coming in. But we say good morning to each other every morning on Team and Zooms. Every morning, everyone's got to say good morning to each other. And then every booking we celebrate. Every single booking, someone gets a round of applause, because and then eventually we'll all look forward to when this is over.
Oh, well, listen, it's been fantastic talking to you, Paul. It's so lovely because, you know, as we said at the start, it does feel like there's a bit more light this week. But you've always been such a positive person, and it's great to hear what you say about, you know, not giving up. We're all in this together, and I'm sure you will go on to get through this, Paul, and to work brilliantly as you do with travel agents. So thank you so much for your time. We wish you all the best for Caribtours and to all of your team as well.
And thank you. And I just want to say, Lucy, as well, I think Travel Weekly genuinely is doing a great job. I think the travel media, the way you've all adapted and just kept all of these issues on the front page, literally and figuratively speaking, I think it's really important. And, you know, I think this new format that you're doing has been really effective. And I'm sure it hasn't always been easy for your team either. So.
No, it's very similar to you, Paul. You know, people are working very hard in difficult, you know, circumstances and doing more work than I've ever asked them to do before. But thank you for that. It's very appreciated because they work really hard, and I feel the same about my team as you do about yours. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.